Hello everyone, my name is Chiyoonga. Today I'll tell you about Korean traditional culture, Nori. I think many foreigners don't have much chance to get know about Nori. However, if you know about it, it's very interesting and fun to know. First of all, Nori is a play played by four Korean traditional instruments. These are the four traditional instruments, and I think you might not have much seen it. In Korean, the first one is called tango, the jing, gwangwari, and the drum, which is in Korean bo. These four musical instruments has a common because they are all percussion instruments, which means you use it by hitting the instrument with a stick here. These instruments were used during the play and many people actually enjoyed the Nori. Nori was usually played outside and actually it is played during the Korean traditional holidays such as the Chuseok or Tano. However, at the past it wasn't. However, it was played during the Korean traditional holidays. The origin of the Nori is when the war started. When starting of the war, the Nori was actually played by many people, and however, as time passed, people played this during farming, and it helped them farm and it made them actually get more high energy. Besides Nori, there is a similar play. This is Nori, and I think you might have not heard it because it is actually not very old culture as Nori. I think you might notice the difference of them, and the difference is that the Nori is actually played outside, and because it is played outside, there is not much limit amount of audience, so everyone just have fun and play all together. However, besides the Nori, Nori is actually more like a performance, so it has limited amount of audience and it is played inside which is more like a performance. Also, the most important thing of both is that Nori is important in hearing. However, Nori is much more important in seeing and enjoying things. These two Nori is actually made for the people to enjoy, and especially during farming. And I think if you know Nori, you might get to know more about Korean traditional culture, and it will help you. I hope you get to know more about Nori. I hope you get more about Nori. Thank you for listening.
That there are many kinds of clothes and more or books and food. There are many kinds of medical science. Among them, the medical science originated in Korea has been called Korean medicine. It has two features. The one is that it is to cultivate internal vitality and promote the health. And the second is, in it, people thought the human's body is also a small universe, so it based on the Yang Oheng theory. The Yang Oheng theory is that it made up of the universe. But because of this, disease and the treatment and medicine can be explained by this theory. Korean medicine was first officially used in the Three Kingdoms period with the medical system. In the unified Silla period, systematic Korean medicine began to be established. During the Joseon dynasty, it developed into two ways. The first, while it was developed by the state in the preceding period, it was spread to the people in the later period. There are a famous medical drama in Korea, and it is called Hojun. Hojun is people who was a Korean medicine doctor and worked as a king's doctor at the palace. Because of the request of King Seonjo, the 2013 kings, he started to create Korean medicine books called 동의 보감. These books has 3 rules at first. Before curing a disease, they value ways to increase life expectancy and prevent the disease, because they thought it is better to keep health and prevent the disease is better than to treat it after getting sick. The second, simplify only the gist of the countless prescriptions. There were so many medical books imported from China saying this and saying that. The third, to make it easier to use local medicine, write their name in Korea in herbal names. There was a lack of medicine in the countryside, so people living in the countryside had to use it around them, but they didn't know what kind of medicine it is. So they wrote the name of the herb called.
While I was researching Korean heritages, I came across various images of bows. If you take a look at this picture, you could see that the bow is curved in a strange way. This is the traditional Korean bow, but it looks like the limbs are too close to each other and a bowstring cannot be strung between them. I was first very confused, but now I can explain about archery and these bows. There are many kinds of bows, and the bows could be divided into 3 types. One, bows made out of a single type of wood. 2, bows that is made out of several types of wood. And 3rd, bows using other materials other than wood. Traditional Korean bows used bamboo, mulberry tree, and most importantly, cow horns. The traditional Korean bow's name is kakgung, extreme reflex horn bows. The horn bows are known for its size. It is the world's most smallest bow, being about 120 to 130 centimeters. On the other hand, English longbows are very different. They are about 150 to 170 centimeters. And similar but bigger than the English longbows, the Japanese bows are about 170 centimeters to 230 centimeters. This is how you make a traditional Korean bow, the horn bow. First, a bamboo is made into a circle. Then the horns, which are already processed to be flat, are attached to the bamboo. The horn and the bamboo are pasted with a special adhesive using fish bladder. This fish bladder adhesive allows the bamboo and the cow horn to move flexibly, but it's strong enough to stick them together. After they are stick together, since it is formed into a circle, these 2 limbs are pulled back to the other side with a massive force, and a bowstring made out of thin threads of silk are strung. This force produces tremendous power and elasticity. The bowstring could be pulled back to 70 to 80%, and when an arrow is released, it will fly with great speed and power. It also has a very long range. Normal archery done in the Olympics has the target about 30 to 90 meters away. In traditional Korean archery, the target is 145 meters away. There are many more types of bows other than the horn bow. For example, there is the large bow called yegung, which is the biggest and strongest bows among the other bows. There is also the iron bow and the iron frame bow, which has iron as its body. There is also the bamboo bow, which used only bamboo to make the bow, and this was used by commoners as a way of entertainment. There is one more thing that I would like to tell you. A special type of arrow which was only used by the Korean army during the Joseon dynasty. This arrow just looks like other arrows except it's half the size. These arrows are called the baby arrows, and to fire the baby arrows, you will need a bamboo prop split in half. The baby arrow is placed in the bamboo prop, and then they are both strung to the bowstring. When the archer fires the arrow, the bamboo prop is still in the archer's hand, but the baby arrow flies through the sky and hits the target. The baby arrow is less affected by the archer's paradox, which is basically a situation where the arrow is affected by air resistance. Because the size is half smaller, it is less affected by the air. Another benefit of the baby arrow is that the enemy could not reuse it. If it's a normal arrow, the enemy could also pick it up and use it back, but the baby arrows, since it's small and unless the enemy has the bamboo prop, the enemy cannot fire it back. This tactic was kept a top secret during the Joseon dynasty, and other countries like China cannot follow this technique. Traditional Korean archery has been designated as an intangible cultural property just last month. Archery has been a very important part to Koreans. First, it was practiced in order to survive and fight. Later, it became more like a sport or an entertainment or a way to prove oneself's basic battle skills. Still, archery is our proud cultural.
I was finding for the Korean intangible heritage, and I finally found out, and I selected this one, 종묘 제략. And I selected this one, 종묘 제략, because it is the Korea's #1 intangible cultural asset and Korea's first UNESCO World Intangible Cultural Heritage in 2001. The meaning of the 종묘 제략 is it is a music that performance and social rites to the king at 종묘 shrine. And I want to tell you about 종묘 because the 종묘 was the place that the 종묘 제략 was played, and the 종묘 shrine was first built when the country was founded, the Joseon dynasty, and it is a place to remember and honor the last kings. 제략, which was handed down from Goryeo dynasty, was renewed at King Sejong's reign. And King Sejong did not like Chinese music called aak being played at the 종묘, which is a place ritual for kings of Joseon dynasty. And therefore, we asked musician named Pageon to make a ritual music for our country, like Joseon dynasty. So 종묘 제략 was born in this way. 종묘 제략 was played with very many instruments, so I want to tell you about that instrument. There was percussion instrument as 대금, 장규, 편중, and 장구, and 편경. And there was also some stringed instrument as 아쟁, 가야금, and 검은고, and 해금. And at the 종묘 제략 song, there is two kinds of song. The first kind of song is they praising at the song the king's intelligence and writing ability, and the second song is praising the king's sword handling skill and fighting ability. We should and shouldn't we now we have to protect this 종묘 제약 song that were preserved by our ancestor after overcoming many hardships.
Today, I talk about the kimchi of intangible cultural assault. First, I'll talk about what is the kimchi. Kimchi is a Korean dish of fermented vegetables such as salted cabbage, cucumber, radish, onion, garlic, and often red pepper flakes. The cabbage offers a great source of vitamin K, C, and B6, may help with conditions like inflammations, digestive issues, and overall gut health. Typically served as a side dish, kimchi can be incorporated into entries such as rice, noodles, or pancake dishes. It has been a staple on Korean drinks tables with origins dating back to the early period of the Three Kingdoms, and historically kimchi has evolved to feature various local ingredients. As seen in early records, kimchi did not originally use garlic or chili pepper. Chili pepper is now a common ingredient of the vegetable dish, but it was introduced to Korea in the early 7th century by Rutka traders. This is the end of the introduction of what is the kimchi, and now I talk about kimchi of intangible culture asserts. Kimchi making, one of the mother food culture of Korea, has been designated as an intangible culture property. The Cultural Heritage Administration announced Wednesday it had designated kimchi making as intangible cultural heritage November 133 after it received preliminary notice in September. Kimchi making encompasses the general culture around the fermented dish and regionally specific variants of kimchi. Kimchi is an inextricable part of Korean cuisine. It is a side dish made from vegetables, seasoned, and fermented with various condiments such as red pepper powder, garlic, and geotager. Kimchi making refers to the different type of kimchi by region and related culture. It has a wider concept than kimjang, the annual tradition of making a large amount of kimchi ahead of winter season, which was added to the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage back in 20-30 years. The administration said one of the reasons the designation was made was because the culture of kimchi making has been handed down for generations and is part of Koreans' everyday lives, and the tradition also has been passed down through the generations, still exists, and many Koreans take part in kimchi making routinely. So we decide kimchi making is recognized as an intangible cultural heritage. I talked about kimchi, so I will briefly explain how to make kimchi. Making kimchi usually starts with salting the main vegetables. For the pogi kimchi, you need to cut the whole cabbage in half lengthwise and then into quarters. You then need to thoroughly bathe each cabbage half quarter in the salt water one at a time, using the other half cup of the salt. Generously sprinkle salt over the thick white part of each leaf. This process makes sure the white parts get evenly salted. Meanwhile, make a kimchi paste by mixing all the seasoning ingredients and then cut the radish into thin matchsticks and mix well with the paste. The explanation of kimchi is finished. I explained what kimchi is, kimchi of intangible cultural sort, and how to make it, and once again I realized the greatness of kimchi. Thank you for listening.